Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for taking the time to come along and see us today. For those who don't know me, I'm Lawrence Webb. I'm the president of IOSH. Really pleased to see so many people that have actually subscribed to this session today. So that's absolutely great stuff. I am joined by a number of other panel members today for this beginners guide to the OSH profession. So I'm going to ask them just to come along for a second and quickly introduce themselves by switching their cameras off. So first up there, Tayla. Hi, Tayla. How you doing?
Hi, I'm good, thank you.
About yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Tayla. I work for Shirley Parsons, and we are a careers consultancy that specialises across all verticals within health, safety, environmental and quality. So I help people pretty much all over the world when they're looking for a career change or advice within health and safety.
That's fantastic. Well, thanks for taking the time to come along, Tayla, because I know you're really busy, which is good news, obviously. So great stuff. Yeah. Funmi, hey, how you doing?
Hi, Lawrence. Morning, everyone. Yes, I'm Funmi, and wear a few hats actually as the CEO of CTS Global, a consulting OSH firm in UK and Africa, and also the founder of SOSHI, which is the only female professional OSH body collision in Africa. And of course, in my day-to-day job, I shuttle between helping organizations certify, going through certification, ISO certifications, as well as training, whilst I also empower and mentor aspiring and existing female OSH professionals as well, and also sit in council. Thank you.
Yeah, so, and in your spare time. Yeah, no, great stuff. Thanks again. Thanks for taking the time to come along. And Sheena, how are you doing?
Hi, Lawrence, and hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here today. So I'm Sheena O'Brien. I'm the Group Risk Manager for Sun International, which is a gaming and hospitality company in South Africa. So I look after risk, all types of business risk, health and safety being one of them. And I'm looking forward to helping out today. So thank you very much, Lawrence.
Great stuff. Thanks, Sheena. Well, today's session's being recorded, so we will be able to catch up with this at a later date. You've got a Q&A section in the bottom of your Zoom screen. So if you think of anything that crops up during the presentation and the panel discussions, please put those in that section. If we don't get to anything today, what we'll do after this session is we'll go back through some of those questions and we'll make sure that people get a response. But in the background, there's some colleagues from IOSH who are also going to try and answer as many questions as possible. So I think what we need to do is we need to get going. So I'm not going to assume anything actually, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of an insight in terms of us as IOSH. So the Institution of Occupational Safety and Health, the world's largest professional membership body for occupational safety and health professionals, something around 50,000 members on the global stage. We are effectively a charity, so we're a non-for-profit professional body. We are driven by a number of charitable objects, which is very much about developing people, global knowledge on OSH, helping the whole world actually improve its standards and its approach to OSH, and today obviously fits into that category really nicely. And we're very much seen as the chartered body, the leading voice, because of our membership. Our members are absolutely fundamental to everything we do, and we're very much hoping that those of you here today who aren't members perhaps are thinking about membership, and we're very much there to help the world of work improve in terms of its knowledge and its competence. So yeah, it's a fantastic membership to be a part of, and being the president is an absolute delight for me. So when we talk about OSH, what do we actually mean? Well, from my perspective, it's always been about the same thing. My driver, why I do what I do, and I have done for 30 years, is ultimately I want to be an enabler and a supporter of organisations those making decisions, those who are planning activities all across the world, to make sure that ultimately everybody goes home fit and well, if not better perhaps than they did when they actually came into the workplace. And unfortunately, I've been there at the worst of times in the past, but I've also been there at the best of times, where as a profession we've absolutely proven our worth. And I think that we have such a fundamental role to play in every organisation, just to help people thrive, help people make the most inclusive decisions with diverse teams, and really make sure we're influencing every opportunity that we possibly can to make the world a safer and healthier place. And as it says there, 2 million workers are still dying across the globe every year, and we've got an absolutely fantastic opportunity as a profession in the workplace to address those statistics and just make sure that the world of work is a much better place for everybody. And in terms of us as professionals, I'll say it again because I've just mentioned it a second ago, we're an enabling profession. We are there to help and support and really drive people to do what they need to do every day when they come to work. And we can be seen everywhere, in every industry, in every sector of business, and certainly in my day-to-day role as a safety, health and environment strategy director for a large UK-based construction and engineering company. My relationships are with everybody in the organization, and that's fantastic, because it means internally I've got a really big, busy network, but I also have access to literally a cast of thousands within the IOSH membership and my wider network who I can call on for help. And because we're so diverse as a team, and because we work across so many different sectors right across the world, from the very top of the biggest organizations right the way down to the lower levels of all organizations, even people who are just there working for themselves, we've got a fantastic outreach, and it's very varied as well in terms of the work that we do. So it's not just about the legal aspect. We are so much more, and there's so much bigger potential. And I think for me, one of the appeals of the IOSH profession has always been the same, and that no 2 days are the same. For me, no 2 days are the same. I mean, I'm the president of IOSH, I'm the chair of IOSH Council. I have my day job, and I get involved in so many different things, from research to going to places that the general public will never see because they've never had that opportunity. There are places that you actually can't talk about. There are very, very visual places and large projects and large organizations that you can get involved in. And because of that variation, as we have here, a quote from Faye, it's great to have that profession where you can look back virtually every day and say, something I've done, or a decision that I've influenced, or a plan that I'm helping somebody put in place really will have a positive impact on the people around me, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, maybe next year. But also that ripple effect means that friends, family, and others in the future would also benefit from those same decisions and impacts that we're having right now. So what a brilliant profession to be in. And it's so varied, so very varied. I mean, the sorts of things that you can get involved with is incredible, and we'll look at that in just a second. But there's also a number of ways into the profession as well, as it says here. I deal regularly with first choice careerers, people that have it in their mind that because of this variety and because of what they've seen and heard from others in the past, it really is a career that they want to move into. So you have first choice careerers who actually come through schools and colleges and universities and really do focus on this as a profession. And as it says on your screen there, apprenticeships and graduate schemes, great ways to get right in at the very beginning and learn your trade from those people who've been around, whilst educating yourself and building your competence. There are people who came into the profession because of circumstance, and I'll be honest, I'm one of those, because I was studying a building diploma at college, and actually had an accident out on site doing some some work with a local building company, and I actually put two and two together, and I was thinking about what I'd learnt in college and what had just happened to me. And I actually educated myself in terms of what should happen next and what I could do. And the more I got into it, the more I thought, actually, this is quite interesting. Maybe I can do both things at once. And that's exactly where I came from. And then there's others, like the brilliant members of our armed forces who come out of the armed forces after a number of years and look for a career change and can actually take the opportunity in the last couple of years of their career to learn something new. And because of the skill sets that they have, you know, the great, the practical side, great organization skills, great planning skills, leadership, good management, it's all the sorts of things that we need in our profession. So, you know, a career change is absolutely possible. But the one thing to remember is that all of us, whatever level we begin at and wherever we come from, we can all aspire to be that person or part of those people at the top of every organization because of the diversity in our skill set. So, as I've said, you can work in any industry. We have a number of different sector groups, 18 altogether within IOSH that the membership actually subscribe to, and they're all looking at one of these 18, or maybe more than one of these 18 sector groups and more sort of specialist areas. And if you go onto our website, which is www.iosh.com, you can actually see all the branches that we have access to for our membership, but also those sector groups that we work with as well. So literally outreach into every place you can possibly imagine. And finally, just thinking about what we do, this is almost a never-ending gambit, really, because there's a few things on the screen you can see in front of you here, which is what people perhaps expect. But it's so much more than that. I mean, my day job is hugely varied, and you'll hear from the likes of Sheena and Funmi in a minute in terms of how their roles over the years have become sort of, you know, very varied, and the things they get involved in. And then Tayla, looking from the recruitment perspective, you never know what kind of job is going to come round the corner. And what you're looking at here is just a selection of some of the things that we might get involved in. But depending on the organization you work with and the role you have, this list becomes absolutely immense. So you never know what you might get involved with, from the next Olympic Games development through to the development of a brand new infrastructure system in a particular country across the world, to you know, just making sure that you're going around and keeping your eye on colleagues in your own organization at a relatively low level, which is just as satisfying. It depends what you want from your career. So this is very much what we're going to talk about now, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment, and we're going to get into a bit of a panel discussion. So if I can ask our panelists just to come off camera for a second. And I've got some questions that we've been thinking about that I'd like to ask. And if it's okay, Tayla, I'd like to come to you first, because I think one of the things that's really important for anybody getting into a career, or perhaps targeting a particular profession, is to sort of understand what employers are actually looking for. And I think one of the keys is really down to those soft skills or power skills, call them what you like. What is it that employers are looking for in terms of behaviors and those sets of skills at the moment that you're seeing?
Yeah, definitely. So it's really quite varied. I think there's an element of obviously understanding that there isn't like a one size fits all approach, and everybody has their own skills and strengths they can bring to it. And health and safety, I think, definitely reflects that as a profession. There probably are a couple that are most common, and they're definitely things that can be worked on, even if you don't think that you have, you know, the best automatic skill set out them. But the three we see a lot, the first one I'd probably say is communication. Mm-hmm. So, and there's a lot of elements to that. So have you got the ability to communicate in more of a coaching way than approaching it as a policeman? You know, have you got the ability to influence and communicate with people at operational level right through to directors in the business and everything else? It's definitely about how you influence and pass on the message in that way. So good communication is definitely key. Also, maybe at this stage of your career, whilst you are working on the technical aspects and you've not got, you know, tons and tons of experience, is selling yourself in other ways. So showing your drive and energy, showing your enthusiasm. You know, have you self-funded any certificates and qualifications? That shows that you're really interested. That shows that you want to keep developing yourself. And that's something employers really like. And what have you achieved? Have you done volunteering? You know, and any of those kind of aspects go a long way, for sure. And then also adaptability. So as Lawrence sort of mentioned earlier about, you know, it is an enabling profession. It's also, you know, no day is the same and everything's changing a lot. People are, you know, looking for ways to continuously improve how they do things, and especially as, you know, things grow with like technology and stuff like that. So just being able to be adaptable to your situation whilst still, I guess, doing your duties as a health and safety professional.
Yeah, no, I think from my perspective, definitely recognise all of those. I mean, just sort of moving it around. I mean, Funmi, is there anything that you'd add to that based on your experience? We've talked about this before, you and I.
I mean, I can't further emphasize on Taylor's point on adaptability, especially as the world of work begins to change. You'd understand that beyond even just the soft skills and the technical knowledge that, you know, OSH professionals would have gained maybe at university or through professional qualifications, they need to understand that it's a different times, it's a different dispensation that we're in as well. And so being able to be flexible and adapt to that understanding is quite key. We're in the world of where AI is coming in, or, you know, machine learning is coming in. So how, as a new professional, how can you be of value add in the workplace as well, knowing that that's the new, you know, the new dispensation that we're in or going into. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Sheena, anything from your perspective?
Yeah, I think really great points raised by Tayla. I think from my side, what would really be something that people should focus on is, or focus on improving, would be leading with empathy. And I say that from the point of view, when you're in this profession, many people will come to you as the trusted advisor, and they will look at you as being the leader when it comes to protecting their health and safety. And talk comes back to communication, you know, being able to listen to others and to actually listen to what is the challenge that they're dealing with, and how can you help them, and help them in an empathetic manner, considering those unique challenges that they're dealing with, and to help them get to a better situation or better outcome at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good advice as well. I mean, certainly from my experience, that's been key, is understanding your audience, and because if you want to influence somebody and you want to have a discussion where you get the outputs that you know everybody's looking for, you have to see it from the other person's point of view. And I think you also have to be humble enough to realize that you don't know the answer to everything, and if you don't, then one of the benefits of being a member of IOSH, or having a network with so many people out there, is you can ask the question. And you know, we're all out there to help one another, and we all started at some place, and there will always be a time when you think, oh, I really don't know the answer. So being confident enough to pick up the phone, or drop somebody a message and just say, you know, can you help me? And it doesn't matter where you are in your career, that's always important. So some really good points there. Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, you know, I talked about how varied the profession can be, and no 2 days being the same. I mean, Sheena, can you tell us what your day typically does look like from your perspective? Because I know that you'll recognise what I've just said about the variability.
Absolutely. And when I got this question, I was thinking around how could I bring it back to some of the students that might be on this call who have no idea what health and safety is actually all about. And similar to Lawrence, I entered this profession as I developed into the profession. It wasn't my first career choice. So when I started out, a typical day for me would be learning about management systems, learning about procedures, how to do risk assessments, how do I manage incidents and investigations, you know, and really supporting my team and the health and safety officers at the time to facilitate those functions across my business. And I mean, the most fun aspects at that time of my day would have been going on the site inspections and getting to see actually the nuts and bolts of how the different departments work, how different machinery works, you know, how the different people need to facilitate it, or work in a kitchen as an example. So, you know, as Lawrence mentioned, days can be different. And I mean, as your role evolves, and I think when I became more actively involved in health and safety, you then need to start writing those procedures. You then need to start actually facilitating those risk assessments with different people within the departments. You need to do training and awareness. So you become a mentor and a coach at the same time. You need to start reporting and writing reports. So now you start becoming a more managerial in nature. You get to give managers feedback, do trend analysis. You get roped into different projects, you know. So if I use an example, when they want to film a movie set at a property, as an example, you then get involved in the nuts and bolts of that. And you learn so much. It's a huge and magnificent industry to be in. And then if I look at my day now, being in a more senior position, I get more involved in strategy now. So how can I meaningfully make change when it comes to health, safety, and well-being? How can I change and influence those mindsets? Get managers and leaders to understand the benefit of health and safety and how it can help their business improve their business performance. So the role evolves and changes so much as you continue and progress in your career. And I mean, industry by industry will differ. So it's really magnificent. So like you said, Lawrence, no one day is the same.
It's not just a job; it's an adventure.
Absolutely,
which is a good thing. That's what we want. I mean, reading between the lines of what you've all said actually so far, you know, another thing that I think is important for us all to do is build those relationships, whether that's internal or external, because it's a great way for us to become that sort of golden thread between different departments and all the different drivers they have and what it is they're looking to achieve. And we're very much that constant who are there to support them and as I keep saying, you know, enable that particular work to carry on. And yeah, the ability to do that, I think, is just so important. But I mean, you know, Funmi, would you add anything to what Sheena said?
Yes, Lawrence. I think for me, it would be, firstly, I started as a first aider. So similarly to everyone else, I just stumbled into the profession from being a first aider in a gym. And here I am today working as a certification organization and a training organization. So to be honest, for me, it's really gaining understanding of legal requirements and how culture plays a key role. And so whether it's culture from an organizational perspective or even from a country level. So I started off again, like I said, in the UK, where I grew up, and then decided to move out to Africa to, you know, what can I do? How can I play a role in Africa? And I realized that getting there, it was a different ball game entirely. So being able to understand the culture and the attitude of where you are is quite important as well. And understanding the art of being an influencer. So I know influencing is now a big thing, especially on social media, TikTok and the likes of it. But I think as safety professionals, we've been influencers from day one. And so understanding that art is definitely something that I've had to work on and still do. And how can I be relatable as well in doing so?
Yeah, great again, great points. And yeah, that influencing piece absolutely shouldn't be underestimated. But I like your point about understanding and getting to grips with different cultures, and of course with that you'll have behaviors as well, and that's another key skill set that we fully need to appreciate in the role that we have, is what makes people tick, and how you can, as again part of that influencing, how you can work with people to get the best out of them and help them thrive, but again as that enabler. I mean, coming to you actually, Tayla, about this, I mean, the roles that you must see that come into you in your day job, I guess that really does sort of demonstrate the variability of what we might be looking at here. I mean, what are some of the sort of lower level to the higher level roles, and perhaps some of the more extreme things that you've had come along where you thought, oh, that's really interesting, that's a bit different? Sorry, I put you on the spot there.
Am I back now?
Yeah.
Sorry, my internet connection just completely cut out. I didn't catch the whole question.
Sorry, I was just saying, building on the points that have been made about the variability in the role and what have you, what are sort of the variabilities that you get in terms of some of the jobs that come across your desk and you think, oh, that's a bit different?
Yeah, I'd say I've definitely seen more of an increase on like the health and well-being side now. And I've actually been quite interested in that because when I started, so I mainly focus on the construction sector. So a lot of the time it's very traditional, you know, overseeing a project and very kind of site health and safety advisors. But all of it was focused on the practical safety side, and there was never actually much on the health side. And you know, I'd asked people in the industry why that might be, and they said that, you know, it's just kind of what happens, or you know, it's the way it is. But I'm now starting to see more and more health and well-being come through, which I think is so important. And a lot on the kind of behavioural safety side as well, a lot on the coaching side. We have a lot of across the HSEQ sort of verticals as well, where it will encompass all areas of health and safety and environmental and quality, which I think can be quite interesting because there's so much that goes into all of those areas. But yeah, it is all very diverse. I think there are even, I think, you know, we'll get a job description and we'll have a conversation with businesses that we partner with, and they say, you know, they could go on and on about all the things they might be getting involved in. But I think that's what makes a career in health and safety so interesting, because it isn't the same day in, day out. And, you know, we'll always express that to people that we work with, to tell them about the variety. And that's what we see that people like the most in the industry.
Okay, no, that's great, thank you. I mean, so it leads me nicely actually into the sort of final question of this first part. But Funmi, if I can come back to you again, I mean, just based on what Taylor's just said, if there's anybody on the call today who's thinking, well, where might I go initially to find out more about the OSH profession in the country where I'm working? I mean, obviously, you know, you're flipping backwards and forwards between countries. I mean, what advice would you give for somebody who's looking for that information?
I think it's a really good question, actually, especially for me. When I started, I didn't really have anywhere to sort of go. I, again, had to navigate and just find my way around. So my first advice would be for them to join a professional body. I think that's the starting point. And because being part of a diverse community, you know, with shared interest with the people in that community comes with invaluable benefits and resources as well, such as access to mentorship. You know, I can't underplay. I know Taylor mentioned the importance of mentorship earlier on. You know, so mentorship, database of current developments in the profession. So I talked about understanding what legal requirements is and tying that with culture. So if you don't even know what the legal requirement is, how do you apply that in your local environment? And so for me, it's about joining a professional body where you can have access to these stuff, and you know, which will help you as well to build continuous professional development. It helps in that light as well. So an example would be IOSH as a global you know, institution, where it's I think it boasts about 50,000 members, and it's got presence in over 130 countries, including Africa. You know, so I speak to those, for instance, in Africa, West Africa, we have IOSH West Africa, which was recently launched. You know, so being a part of that community is definitely something I would recommend to those on that part of the world. You know, it has immense resources. You know, IOSH has immense resources for new professionals, such as, you know, Blueprint. You know, I think I was on the Future of the Profession Steering Group committee meeting, I think it was last week, and we were talking about how interesting the Blueprint is. You know, so this is something I would definitely recommend if you're not, if you're looking to be, if you're new, join IOSH, because IOSH is likely to be in your country. However, for those who may not necessarily have IOSH as well in their countries, I would recommend that they join, you know, local associations or professional bodies as well. We have, you know, they should similarly offer the same offerings as IOSH. So we have in Nigeria, for example, ISPON, that's the Institute of Safety Professional. We have SIOSH in South Africa. We have ZIOSH and Ghana Institute. So there's so many professional bodies, including SOSHI that I mentioned, which obviously supports women in the OSH profession, whether you're new or existing, whatever it is, you know. So my advice would be for them to join a professional body or professional association where they can tap into a lot of resources to help them.
Yeah, no, great advice. And anything to add from your perspective, Sheena?
I definitely agree with Funmi. Professional bodies are a great starting point. for anybody who needs to learn about it. And I mean, if I use the South African example, IOSH will give you information around local legislation. So similar to what she said, if you have a local professional body in your country, see what they offer you. They will likely take you through what the legislation says. They will give you the basics to start out in the profession. But I think also look at what are some of the opportunities that might be given within your organization as well when it comes to learning about it. You might not necessarily be in that specific role, but maybe you can participate as a health and safety representative, or as a first aider, like Funmi mentioned, or as a firefighter. There's many different opportunities where you can volunteer as an aspect of the health and safety role and gain some experience and knowledge, and then build those relationships with the people who have it. And then you can grow and find qualifications that can help you get the technical aspect of it as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting, actually, because one thing that that occurred to us in the planning of this session was the fact that some people will hear OSH referred to in so many different ways because of the extent that it moves into and across different organisations. So some talk about OSH, some talk about HSE. In my day job, we're SHE because we're safety, health and environment. I know others who are safety, health, environment, security, quality, fire. They all basically amount to the same sort of 75%, but then different companies and different countries as well recognise this in slightly different ways. So you might find, for example, you start as an OSH professional, but then there's a natural synergy with the environmental perspective. I mean, in my organisation, we are a SHE team, so we are safety, health and environment, and well-being comes into that as well. But we have environmental specialists as well as OSH specialists in particular areas, but we also incorporate the likes of process safety specialisms and carbon reduction specialisms and what have you, but it all sits under that umbrella of SHE for us. Others who we work with, especially in the UK on large engineering projects, we joint venture with them really well, even though they have a HSE department or a SHEC department, or it doesn't matter. We're all there for the same basic aim. So don't be confused by any terminology you hear. Ultimately, we're all working as one big team, and you might come across people who are generalists, you might come across people who are specialists, but we're all in it together. So that's a really interesting first set of discussions. So thank you for that. What I want to do is just spend 10 minutes just talking through some of the different resources that might be available. So I'll share my screen again. Okay, so first of all, let's start with this. The IOSH jobs board. So you can go onto the IOSH. There's actually an IOSH job specific website where all of the sort of big jobs, and these are global jobs, these aren't just UK jobs. The IOSH jobs board is a great collection of lots of different levels of job that are actually out there. So for example, there are overlaps with the likes of Shirley Parsons, for example, because this is a great board for people to put those opportunities into one place that everybody here today can tap into. And it's broken down. You can search, so it's broken down into different levels of opportunity. So don't think that these are all senior director level or manager level jobs. There's a whole range of different things that are available here. So that's definitely one location to keep an eye on. And you can see the QR code there. If you scan that with your phone or tablet now, it will take you to that jobs board location. It's great that both Funmi and all three of you actually have mentioned the benefit of being in an organisation such as IOSH as a member, because there are a lot of benefits that come with that. For me, that network is so important, and it's so useful to have access to so many people who will know somebody or will know the answer or can support you or is a mentor. We've got a mentoring community, which is absolutely brilliant. And I've mentored a lot of people over the years, and I get as much from being a mentor as I do from being a mentee. And it's a great way to further build those relationships alongside networking events, of course. We've all mentioned, you know, that those already, but we have dedicated networking events for the membership, for network volunteers, because there's a lot of volunteers within the IOSH community who give up their time, as I do as president, and as Funmi does on council and what have you. But there's also people in all those sector groups I talked about, and people at branch level, and they hold events just to further support and develop all of those members that they represent. Then we've got the likes of the IOSH magazine, we've got the IOSH Extras portal, which is something you get access to as a member, where you can get lots of discounts on different things, and there's a wide range of things as well. Again, it's not just geared up to people in senior positions, it's anybody who might benefit from a whole range of different benefits, but also when times are difficult, we have a benevolent fund which is there to provide a source of money for people who need help in some sort of way because of their personal circumstances. Of course, you know, we are the chartered professional membership body on the global stage for the IOSH profession, so that means you get that stamp of excellence, and also the post nominals that come after your name depending on the membership grade you're at, and that is globally recognized as being, you know, a really serious achievement. And then along that journey through the membership structure, we have blueprints that a couple of our panelists have mentioned already, and blueprint is our sort of competency system whereby you can actually record your CPD, your ongoing development. It's a great source of information for you to be able to improve yourself over time through development plans. There's an ethics training module in there. There's access to more than 1,000 pieces of information to try and help you develop as an individual, and it's there to support the membership grade that you're on and then your journey going forward. And linked to that, we have a competency framework which includes the technical aspects that people typically think about with regards to IOSH professionals and all of that sort of technical background that you need, but also, very important, those core requirements and the behavioural aspects as well. And these different aspects that make up our competency framework are very much used for all of our networking events that we have. You can see here that if you're looking for a particular qualification route into joining IOSH and at a particular sort of, you know, membership grade, we're talking here about the likes of student membership. Well, you can actually go and seek out what different organisations are out there and how they align to what we require within our membership structure, and it's our competency framework that drives that. So, you know, you can see universities, for example, around the world who've actually been accredited to our standards, and there's more than one way of entry. As I said earlier, you can come in as an apprentice, you could be a graduate, you could have done a university degree. At the lower levels, there's all sorts of different opportunities and ways into our profession. So again, there's a QR code there that gives you a little bit more information. So student membership specifically, then, I think the thing to remember with this is that, you know, as a student member, you shouldn't think to yourself that you're overtaken by all those people who are chartered or chartered fellows. We're actually all there as one community to support one another. But if you are at the early stages of studying a particular qualification, and you're in the early stages of your career, then student membership's perfect, because you get access to the networks we've talked about. You know, you can get access to the mentoring scheme that I just mentioned, and of course our career hub, which is more than just access to potential opportunities in the jobs market. There's things in there to do with improving your CV, improving your own personal skills, leadership, management. There's a whole range of different things that you'll get access to. And there's also potentially in the autumn access to up to £250 as a bursary to help you in your studies. And this was set up in memory of a chap called Howard Phillips, who in his will actually said he wanted to see future members of IOSH have some support in terms of where they could go next in their career, and there are these sums of money available to help you with that. So again, scan the QR code, find out a little bit more about student membership and whether the likes of a bursary might be useful for you. And then finally, and this was mentioned by Sheena earlier, the Future Leaders community. If you're somebody who's under 35 or a student member already, or you've got less than 5 years OSH experience, you automatically become part of IOSH's Future Leaders community. And I've got to be honest, I'm really fortunate in my role that I get to interact with the future leaders, whether it's on their steering group or whether it's just members like Sheena, for example, on a regular basis at different expos and webinars, planning opportunities and IOSH Council and at local level at branches. And it's so great to have that motivation, that drive, that different, diverse thinking, and that healthy challenge that comes with this community. And it's an absolute game changer. So if you feel that, again, scan the code, if you feel that this is something that applies to you specifically, then take a look and absolutely make the most of that network, because there are some real movers and shakers and some great people that are massively willing to help anybody along their journey through membership. So please just bear that in mind as well. So we're going to take some questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen again, and I'm going to ask our panelists to come back on, and we're going to see what we've got in terms of a few questions out there. One I really would like to ask, and maybe Funmi, if we start with yourself, just to sort of put you on the spot there. There is something that keeps cropping up, and I know the future leaders have talked about this as well, with regards to the fact that there is potentially a bit of a barrier through lack of experience that people have to get over for certain roles. And it's the old sort of scenario of, well, the problem is, you know, I can't get the role because I haven't got the experience, but how can I get the experience without the role? I mean, you know, is there anything that you feel would help people who may think they're in that dilemma?
Yeah, and I think this is a common theme, even in the Q&A box at the moment. So you're definitely right. For me, what I would say is, particularly coming from the perspective of those in Africa, especially where they've even moved from Africa into the UK or whatever it is, where there's a gap, I would always say to consider volunteering as one. So just the same, I think it was Sheena who mentioned earlier on, to say just put yourself forward, even if it's to volunteer as a first aider, volunteer as whatever it is, just to get your foot through the door. That would for me be the deal breaker in terms of trying to break that curse of, you know, I don't have any experience. Well, you need to start from somewhere. So you consider unpaid, voluntary work, work experiences. You know, I did it as well, even for my church, you know, as little as just being the health and safety professional for my church. It was able to close when I had a gap on my CV. That was how I was able to close that gap on my CV, just to make sure that employers don't ask any questions to say, well, why were you out of job? So, I mean, I was supporting my local church as a professional. So that for me, it would be volunteering. I can't overemphasize, or even, you know, we talked about mentorship as well. I sometimes as well would get some of my mentees to, you know, take a bit of my work. I would pass some work to them. Can you do this? Can you do that? And that's something that they can also put on their CV as them actually, you know, doing something, and it can close off that gap as well. So I think just putting yourself forward as a volunteer, it goes a long way.
Absolutely. I mean, we've had a question about how do you, you know, what opportunity do I have to volunteer in IOSH? And the answer to that is there's lots. I mean, the first thing, you know, look at your local branch, you know, make connections with your local IOSH branch, find out who they are, contact the chair, or go onto the IOSH website into the branches and groups section, and you can actually see all the forthcoming branch meetings, and more of those are actually now becoming face-to-face as well as online through our sort of hybrid approach. And start making those connections, and you can quite easily start to offer to do presentations or help the branch committee. Maybe start there. There's other things later on you can do in terms of applying to be a member of IOSH council, as obviously you've done, Funmi. And I think if you look at what Sheena's doing now from the sort of future leaders perspective, although it's a community that you gain access to, there's lots of things that I know Sheena and your colleagues have done in terms of things like podcasts and little sort of training sessions for people and short overviews. I mean, is there anything else you'd add to that, Sheena? I mean, lots of opportunities there for volunteering.
Absolutely. And I think just to bring it back to like the professional body aspect as well, I mean, there's so many opportunities that you can get through your professional bodies to volunteer as well. You can attend expos or events where they have health and safety professionals from various organizations at the same event. I mean, you can network with those people. They will likely be able to give you opportunities to gain experience in some form. I think there's not much more I can really add to that.
No, listen, that's fine. It's all valid. You are being put on the spot. I appreciate that. So, so Tayla, I've got a good sort of little selection of a couple of things I'm going to piece together here for you, if that's okay. Jay's actually said, what are recruitment firms doing to challenge or educate clients on expectations for early careers, which I think is it's a really important question, and I know that that's something that Shirley Parsons in particular is working on. But at the same time, could you also give an insight in terms of what people from outside of the UK can actually do in terms of tapping into the UK market?
Yeah, so I think off the back of Jamie's question, so it's something I've seen quite a lot on LinkedIn recently as well. Actually, it's a big question, and I'd say, I can't speak for all businesses, but for us at Shirley Parsons, we're not order takers. Sometimes companies do come to us and they'll give us a big shopping list of requirements that they want from somebody, and it is 100% our responsibility to push back and reset their expectations. We do an annual market insight survey. We've actually just published ours a couple of weeks ago, and that will look at trends in the market, average salaries, expectations from candidates, and this is answered by thousands of people in the industry. So we've got good knowledge on expectations, and we've got the evidence there, and we'll just try and influence. And at the end of the day, if we think something is unrealistic, if it's not going to work for the company we're working with, or if it's not going to work for the candidate, it's just not worth our time. So we always want to try and make the point that it is important. Here's actually what you should be paying, or if this is only what you can pay, then you need to adjust your expectations. I do understand it is frustrating when you look at entry-level position, but it's paying nothing and it actually wants loads of experience, and you think, well, how can I get the experience without someone giving me the chance? So I completely get the frustration from a candidate's point of view with that. But we are always having those really upfront conversations with the businesses we partner with, and that's what makes the relationship work from our point of view, to be honest. From people coming in maybe from outside the UK, I think there is an element of setting realistic expectations. So one of the big kind of barriers is probably companies say to us, they would be concerned that their legislation and knowledge would be different to obviously if somebody has worked in another country and then coming into the UK. So, even though somebody might have 5 years of experience elsewhere, that might not necessarily translate for them to be able to step straight into a management position. So sometimes in the UK, it's worth kind of maybe getting your foot in the door at a level a little bit lower, just so you can kind of familiarize yourselves, grow your expertise within the UK market. I definitely agree with Funmi as well. Just putting yourself out there, things aren't going to fall on into your lap. There's so many people that can help you. There's IOSH, there's us as a business, there's LinkedIn networking groups and everything. But you do need to be proactive, and you do need to kind of get your name out there to a degree. But yeah, I think in terms of kind of maybe sort of lowering expectations slightly in terms, if you have 5 years managerial experience somewhere else, but to kind of get that UK experience, maybe you would step into an advisory level position, or whilst you're maybe doing an extra UK based qualification, and then you will quite quickly find yourself working back up that ladder. That's what we've actually helped people do that in the industry. That does tend to work quite well.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. And that answers actually some of the other sort of questions, or partly answers some of the other questions that are in the chat as well. And I mean, there's a couple of questions that we were asked before today. One is, you know, what else can I do alongside my degree qualification to boost employability? And some of those things all three of you have mentioned actually. Is certainly sort of, you know, volunteering and showing that you've got a wide range of skill sets and experiences is useful. Getting a basic understanding of behaviours and culture and how things actually work from that perspective. And certainly, you know, just even if you're just sort of just trawling the internet to understand all the different ways that the OSH profession can actually be used and present itself in anywhere across the world, really, and think about what the benefit is that you can bring as an individual to those people in the organizations that you'd like to work with, to literally show them how you're going to add so much additional value to them. And it's as much about your personality and your approach as it is all of that technical knowledge, because everybody can learn. Every day is a school day, right? Tayla, you've got your hand up. That's very polite. Thank you very much.
I know, it was very polite, isn't it? No, I was just going to say, I did touch on it briefly, but I think, you know, it is probably especially useful to people like that will be on this webinar at the moment, is utilizing LinkedIn in the same way that you would kind of utilize like IOSH professionals. You know, I've got a network of like thousands of people, which means that it reaches tens of thousands more people. So, you know, connect, like everyone in the health and safety profession in general, you know, they do what they do because they're passionate and they want to help the business and people go home safely. They want to help other professionals as well. If you connect with people, you don't need to know them. It's not like another form of social media. You know, just grow your network of health and safety professionals, join groups, ask questions, and I think you'll be surprised about how much people will actually throw you a couple of comments, or which would massively help. And also there's a lot that's being, I see a lot that are advertised in terms of actual opportunities, or volunteering, or whatever it might be. And I think it's just such a good way to boost your network on that side, for sure.
Okay, fantastic, thank you. Another question we had is where or how do I start a journey into IOSH membership? Well, what I would say there is go on to the IOSH website again, so www.iosh.com. In there's a section that's completely dedicated to membership. It explains the different membership grades. It explains what the different membership grades actually mean in reality, and how you sort of get into each one of those in terms of the requirements. You know, from an early careers point of view, we've already talked a little bit about student membership, maybe as a starter for 10, but we've also had a question which is interesting on the flip side, and I was talking about this to somebody yesterday in terms of what prospects are available for those in latter years, so those perhaps at the other end of their careers. And it is an interesting question actually. Within council we have a Future of the Profession steering group who's dedicated to look at what the career progression actually does look like. And we've been talking about this exactly because as people get towards the end of their careers, one of the biggest fears for me is you lose that network, you lose that knowledge, you lose that experience, and we absolutely don't want that to happen. And one of the key things that can actually come as a benefit from that is giving back into the likes of IOSH again, so that others benefit from all those years of experience. And my personal experience most recently is that actually time isn't a barrier now, because everybody's got something to add and something to bring. And if you can demonstrate that actually puts you in a really good spot with any employing organization now. I mean, Funmi, does this sort of ring a bell with you, or as a member of council?
Absolutely. I mean, as a member of the Future of the Profession steering group as well, it's definitely an agenda for us that we're considering. We have agenda for new in, middle up, and obviously the giving back. We call them giving back category, meaning that it doesn't matter at what stage you are within a profession, you can always add value. And so we're looking at things like, even if it's reverse mentoring at that stage as well, there is something to give back. But again, if I say, when I saw that question, what came to mind was, it's interesting that you picked it that way, but where I saw it from was, you know, at an older age, can I still get into the profession? You know, so for me, there is no age discrimination. You can come into the profession even as an elderly person or whatever it is. You know, there is no age discrimination. It's the point I wanted to just put out there. And again, just to encourage those that may also be, I mean, in the UK, we have the Discrimination Act, obviously, which protects you know, people in employment. However, in countries or jurisdictions where there is no legislation that protects that, it would be just to encourage whoever it is that wants to come into the profession, no matter how late. It's a function of drive. You can get in at any stage and you can achieve whatever you want, depending on how hungry you are for it.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. So we're almost out of time, but I would like to offer just one last question to Sheena, if that's okay. Somebody has actually asked the question, in your experience, what is the most difficult part of being an IOSH professional? Massive question, but in just a couple of minutes, what do you think?
So I think one of the biggest challenges that any person in the professional experience is being able to gain the support of others. So this is where building those relationships is so key, because a lot of the time when you're starting out in this profession, you can be seen as the bad cop, because you have to come and you have to tell them you're not doing this the right way, you're not doing that the right way. So it's about your approach. It's about how you build the relationships and make people understand why you are telling them things should be done a different way. So I think in my experience, one of the biggest challenges that I've faced was definitely getting that support when it comes to driving your health and safety programs, making people understand why you're doing things and what the benefit is to them, because at the end of the day, what you are doing is for them. So that, for me, in my personal experience, has been one of the most difficult things to deal with, but you can overcome it. Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Well, we're getting towards the end of things now. So listen, to the three of you, thank you so much for your time and insights today. We could quite easily talk, I'm sure, for another 3 or 4 hours, although I guess by the end of that I'll probably be on my own. But listen, what you've said, great guidance, great stuff for people. So what is it, if those today want to find out more? Well, if you take a look at your screen, there's another QR code. Certainly there is so much that IOSH does do to support different levels of membership, but from a student perspective, take a look at the website and engage with social media. You'll find that all of us on the call today are really active on LinkedIn in particular, but there are others. There's lots of videos that you can find through the IOSH YouTube channel, for example, based on events that have been held previously, but there's also guidance information there, previous events like this one, where there's lots of different people giving help and advice, and of course all of that is absolutely free, and there is some guidance documentation that's available as well. There you go, an hour absolutely flies by. Please remember what we said about the fact that we will try and come back with some of the other answers to questions that may not have got covered today. I know that people have been working in the background to cover off some of the Q&A as well. And of course the session's being recorded, so you will be able to get access to this through the IOSH website in the future. So with just about 30 seconds to go, thanks once again to Funmi, Tayla and Sheena. Really good to see the three of you again, and no doubt there'll be people looking you up on LinkedIn as a result today to get some more wisdom. So I've been Lawrence Webb, IOSH President. Thanks very much for taking the time to join us, and very much hope to look forward to seeing you on future sessions. And don't forget about the one 2 weeks today, the part 2. Thanks very much, everyone. Enjoy your weekends.
Thank you.